it's a cool thing. It just takes you just take flour and water. You need a starter, which is
Culture? Like
yeah,
a yeast
yeah. You
culture?
just start with flour and water, and then the natural yeast that comes from around us in the environment goes in and starts eating that,
What?
and it becomes a living thing. And people have starters that are like 100 years old.
What?
You take a couple ounces off, and you always maintain a little and feed it like a living thing. It's like a bowl of flour and water, but you'll see it start to bubble when you feed it more flour and water.
What?
The yeast is eating it. Yeah, it's the coolest.
That's crazy. So
Yeah.
it's in your refrigerator, like
So
a
it's in
bowl?
my fridge, like a little mason jar.
Wow.
And then you scoop it out. You take a little chunk of it, and then you feed it, and it expands. And then you take some of that and make bread out of it.
That is fucking nuts.
It's pretty, yeah.
So-
I never would have been into this if I didn't hear that concept, and now I can't stop. I'm baking bread like Little Red Riding Hood.
Who gave you the idea to do this?
This writer friend of mine, he's been doing it for a long time, and he said you just have sourdough bread, and the kids love it, and
Wow.
I just started doing it, and I just got hooked on it.
Where do you buy your starter?
You don't buy it; you can just start it.
You make a starter.
Make a starter.
Okay, how do you do that?
You just take some flour and water and put it out on the counter.
That's it?
Yeah. I mean, there's measurements and stuff, but that's it. And then the natural yeast, there's yeast around us just floating around.
That explains a lot of things.
Yeah. And it goes into the concoction, and you'll see it starts to bubble and get lighter, and you feed it some more and it gets bigger.
Why you say feed it? Like feed
You
it
feed
what?
it because it's
What
yeast.
are you feeding it?
It's like a yeast,
Right.
like a little community. And
Right.
You're feeding it equal parts flour and water,
Wow.
and it eats it. And now it's like this living thing in the house.
Who has a starter that's 100 years old?
I went to buy a Dutch oven, which is like a pot that you can bake, that you put the bread in. And this old guy was like, "What are you doing?" You know, the guy at Williamson was like 6 foot, lanky. "What do you need it for?" I'm like, "I'm going to make some bread." "Oh, I've been making bread for a long time." "Really?" "I'm going to be making sourdough bread." "Oh, I got my starter. Where are you getting your starter?" I said, "Well, a friend of mine has the Brea starter, and my daughter
The, wait,
just
wait, wait, the what?
La Brea.
What's the La Brea starter?
That one is that all the La Brea bakery bread, you get the yeast off of the skin of grapes. So it's a process where you take grapes and you put it in like cheesecloth, and you just let the yeast come off of all grapes have yeast in the skin, eating on the skin of the grapes. And that drips off, and then you put it into the basic starter with flour and water. So
And you say La
it's a
Brea
little sweeter.
Bakery,
so the
like
La Brea,
it's a chain? Is that what it is?
yeah, like La Brea. Yeah, you'll see them.
Okay.
They're actual bakery, and now they're like in Ralph's and everything. It's all over. And they say, and like the places in San Francisco that have big sourdough,
Yeah.
that it maintains the same starter that they've always had. So this guy
Wow.
said, so I told him where I was getting mine and stuff. My daughter made one as a gift, and then this other guy gave me a piece. He said his starter came from Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and he got it from a friend of his, and it's over 100 years old.
What?
People have been passing it on.
It's a cowboy starter.
Cowboy starter. That's
Not
what
quite.
it was. It was a lot of miners in San Francisco and all that during the gold rush. They were creating bread that way. That's where it started.
Now,
Yeah.
I wonder how old the yeast organisms get before they die, and do they die?
They probably reproduce, and yeah, it's a good question. I don't know, because basically, like, I have it on my counter now. I've been feeding it for the last day, so now it's kind of bubbly.
Wow.
Looks like glue, and it's kind of bubbly. So I'll scoop out 4 ounces of that, make bread out of it, and then take 1 ounce of that, put it back in the jar, feed it a little, and put it in the fridge.
So, what's the process? So, if you took 4 ounces out and made bread with it, what do you do with that, the starter?
You basically take a lot of flour. You take like 28. This is to make 2 of them, 2 loaves. You take 28 ounces of all-purpose flour or wheat flour, whatever you want to use. You put that in with a little salt. Then you take your starter. You take the 4 ounces and 18 ounces of water, a bunch of water, and you make it into a cloudy mixture. And then you dump that into the flour and salt that's in your mixer, and it just makes it into dough. And then it just rises naturally. You fold it a couple times, put it into a ball, into the Dutch oven after a couple hours, and then you've got bread.
It's that simple.
It's that simple.